Hello, in this video we'll learn why iron is important and why it needs special consideration on a plant-based diet. We'll look at great plant-based sources of iron and crucially what you can do to maximise the amount of iron that your body can absorb. You may remember from previous weeks that we'd noted that it's not the quantity of a particular nutrient in a food type which is important, but rather the amount of that nutrient which your body is actually able to absorb and use. So we're going to be looking at ways you can make sure you're actually absorbing enough iron. Now, iron is an essential mineral. We have to ensure we get enough from our diet in order to maintain good health. Now, it performs a number of vital roles in our bodies, including it's an essential component of our red blood cells that transport oxygen around our bodies. It helps to remove carbon dioxide, which is a waste product from the normal functioning of our bodies. And it helps our immune system to function properly. So how much iron do you need a day? Well, according to Brenda Davis RD and Vasanta Melinda RD, women who are on a plant-based diet need 32 milligrams a day. And postmenopausal women and men who are on a plant-based diet need 14 milligrams a day. Iron deficiency is one of the most common mineral deficiencies in the world, and it most regularly affects children and women of childbearing age. Iron is lost during menstruation, and as a result, women need to get more iron from their diets than men do. Some common symptoms of iron deficiency anemia are tiredness and weakness, shortness of breath, having cold hands and feet, and chest pain or an irregular heartbeat. If you think you might have a deficiency, as always, you should go and speak to a medical professional. Dietary iron exists in two different forms. One is called heme iron, which is found in meat, and then we also have non-heme iron, which is found in plants. So non-heme iron, the iron found in plants, is less readily absorbed into the body. And this is why the daily recommended intake for people following a plant-based diet is much higher than for people who eat an omnivorous diet. While non-heme iron isn't as readily absorbed by the body, as the iron is tightly bound in plants by substances called phytates and oxalates. These substances hold on to the iron, and our digestive systems aren't able to break down the phytate and oxalate complexes, so our bodies are less able to absorb the bound minerals, like iron. As a result, most of the plant-based iron in food makes its way through the gut and then is excreted when we go to the bathroom, rather than being absorbed and used by the body. So in order to get the most nutrition possible from our diet, we can employ various techniques to reduce the phytate and oxalate load of our meals, like soaking, sprouting, and choosing fermented foods. Because iron isn't as readily absorbed from plant-based sources, iron deficiency can potentially be a problem for vegetarians and vegans. So we've made you a downloadable infographic which shows you the best sources of plant-based iron, and you'll find that in the resources section. As you can see, some great sources are sunflower and pumpkin seeds, edamame, spinach and kale. Now, we noted earlier that at the same time as including good sources of iron in our diets, it's important to increase the amount of iron that our bodies are actually able to absorb and use. The way that we prepare and combine ingredients can have significant effects on the amount of iron that we can absorb. Here's our top tips for maximising the amount of iron that you can absorb from your diet. Tip number 1. Pairing iron-rich foods with sources of vitamin C. Studies have shown that having at least 50 milligrams of vitamin C can increase iron absorption by 4 to 6 times. So this is really easy to put into practice. For example, try adding some red pepper or capsicum to your spinach salad, or kiwi fruit with an iron-rich breakfast. And beta-carotene, which is the compound found in carrots and sweet potato and gives it those lovely colours, has a very similar effect. Tip number 2. Soaking, fermenting and sprouting are techniques which actually break down the phytates and release the minerals contained within. If you're a fan of eating bread, try swapping out your regular bread for sourdough. Equally, there are some things we should avoid as they can actually decrease the amount of iron absorption. So tip number 3, drinking tannin-rich drinks like wine or coffee, and they will actually decrease the amount of iron that your body can absorb. If you do enjoy having a coffee or a glass of wine, then think about having them at different times from your source of iron. Tip number 4, if you're taking calcium supplements for any reason, then you should avoid taking them at the same time as eating foods rich in iron. So these two minerals actually compete for absorption into your body, and if you have them at the same time, you'll absorb less iron. Simply take the supplement at a different time from the iron source. We've created a handy infographic for you with all this information, which you'll find in the resources section. You can download it and keep it handy as a reminder. Now, you might be wondering, if iron is so important, why don't we just load up with supplements to make sure that we're getting enough? Well, iron is one of those essential nutrients that you don't want too little or too much of. Your iron intake needs to be just right. Now, whilst your body does a pretty good job of regulating itself, the great news for plant-based eaters, as we mentioned earlier, is that non-heme iron, that's the iron found in plants, is more easily regulated by the body, so it can kind of take it or leave it. Heme iron, on the other hand, that's the iron found in animal products, it tends to force its way in whether we need it or not. So consuming too much iron, like taking loads of iron supplements, it can cause an iron overload. And that's why, if you think you have anemia, you should really go and see a doctor for testing and recommendations for appropriate supplementation. Don't just load yourself up with supplements without seeking medical advice, because you may well end up overshooting the mark. So the key takeaways from today's video. People on a plant-based diet need to ingest more iron than others. Women of childbearing age should aim for 32 milligrams a day, and women of postmenopausal age and men should aim for 14 milligrams a day. The best sources of iron are nuts and seeds, kale and spinach, dark chocolate, quinoa, and edamame. Make sure to include these in your diet. To increase iron absorption, eat iron-rich foods with sources of vitamin C or beta-carotene. And remember, that's a compound found in carrots and sweet potatoes. To ensure absorption of iron, don't drink tannin-rich drinks like coffee, tea, and red wine with your iron-rich meals. If you do enjoy those drinks, just have them at a separate time. Take supplements containing calcium away from iron-rich meals. And as always, you'll find the main points of this week's entire health section in your downloadable weekly cheat sheet. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next one, where we're going to be looking at calcium on a plant-based diet. I'll see you then.